My name is Daniela. I am 26 years old. And for 3 years, while my parents told the neighbors, the church group, and my own grandmother that I was waitressing at a steakhouse downtown, I was working as a high-end companion, an escort. The word my mother spat at me that night like it tasted like poison. But here's what nobody in that kitchen wanted to admit. Here's what I needed you to know before you judge me the way they did. That money in my account, $81,000 of it had already gone to them, quietly, anonymously, until that night. My father's hip surgery, my brother's last semester of college, the roof that finally stopped leaking into my childhood bedroom. I paid for all of it. And they never once asked where a waitress got that kind of money, because they never wanted to know. They just wanted the checks to keep coming. Did I owe them an explanation? I still don't know. But I know I owed myself the truth. And that night, on that cold kitchen floor, the truth finally came out for all of us. Let me take you back to where this really started. Not that night. 3 years earlier. I grew up in a house in Scottsdale, Arizona, where the heat in July could make the air shimmer over the driveway, where my mother kept the air conditioning at a number she called the budget setting, which meant the whole house stayed 81 degrees from May through September. My father worked construction until his hip gave out. My younger brother, Mateo, was the golden child. Straight knees, full scholarship offers. The kid my parents pointed to at every holiday dinner like a trophy they'd personally built. And me, I was the disappointment. The daughter who dropped out of community college after one semester because I couldn't afford it and wouldn't ask for help. The daughter who, at 23, told her parents she'd gotten a waitressing job at a nice restaurant downtown and watched her mother's face fall, just slightly, like even that small a job was somehow beneath the family name. What they didn't know was that 3 weeks before I told them about the restaurant, I'd sat in my car outside a hospital billing office, looking at a number on a piece of paper that made my chest go tight. My father needed hip surgery. Insurance would cover part of it. The rest, $11,400, was due before they'd even schedule the procedure. I had $212 in my checking account. I want you to really picture that. A grown daughter watching her father wince every time he stood up from the couch, knowing the number that stood between him and relief, and having $212 to her name. I told my parents the money came from extra shifts and a manager who liked me. They didn't ask follow-up questions. Looking back now, I think that should have told me something. Nobody questions a story they're relieved to hear. Here's where pacing matters, because the betrayal in my house wasn't loud. It was quiet, and it was constant, and it came dressed as concern. My mother would say things like, "It's okay, honey. Not everyone is built for college," with a softness in her voice that somehow cut deeper than yelling ever could. My father would clap Mateo on the shoulder at dinner and say, "This one's going to take care of us one day," while I sat 2 feet away, already taking care of them, and nobody saw me do it. For 3 years, I lived a kind of double life that I think only women in this position can fully understand. By day, or by the family's understanding of my days, I was a waitress with an inconsistent schedule and generous regulars. By night, I was someone else entirely, in hotel suites and private dinners across 3 states, building a clientele that paid for discretion as much as for company. I kept a notebook. Not for them, for me. Every dollar I sent home, I wrote down. 17 wire transfers in year 1, 43 in year 2, 61 in year 3. 121 transactions totaling $81,300. Every one of them labeled in my own banking app as family, MISC, so there'd be no trail back to what I actually did to earn it. I told myself the lie was protecting them. The truth is, the lie was protecting me too, from the look I knew would be on my mother's face if she ever found out. The same look she gave me that night in the kitchen. The discovery wasn't dramatic in the way you'd expect. There was no dropped phone, no found text message. It was a misplaced bank statement. I'd come home for Sunday dinner, something I still did every week, because despite everything, I loved my family in the complicated, aching way you love people who don't really see you. I left my bag on the counter while I helped set the table. My mother, looking for a pen to write down a recipe, opened the outer pocket of my bag instead of the kitchen drawer. She found a folded bank statement I'd printed that morning for an apartment application. $612,000 sitting in a savings account under my name. I remember walking back into the kitchen and seeing her standing there. completely still, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. My stomach dropped the way it does on the first hill of a roller coaster, that half second of free fall before your body catches up to what's happening. Cold sweat prickled at the back of my neck, even though the kitchen was 81 degrees, just like always. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was flat. Too flat. I didn't lie. I think some part of me had been waiting 3 years to stop lying. I told her everything. The hospital bill. The wire transfers. The 3 years of extra shifts. I watched her face go through something I can only describe as a system shutting down. Disbelief, then horror, then something that looked almost like math, like she was recalculating every memory of the last 3 years in real time. That's when the gravy boat left her hand. That's when I ended up on my knees on the cold tile, not because anyone pushed me, but because my legs simply stopped holding me up. After that night, I didn't scream. I didn't defend myself the way I think she expected me to. Instead, I went quiet. And quiet, I've learned, is far more dangerous than loud. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning proof. There's a difference, and it matters. I spent the next several weeks doing something I should have done the moment my mother's face changed in that kitchen. I documented everything. I pulled 3 full years of bank statements. I matched every single wire transfer to a date, a purpose, a receipt. The $11,400 for my father's surgery. The $9,200 for Mateo's final semester tuition, the one my parents told everyone Mateo's scholarship covered. $6,000 for the roof. 73 separate receipts, stapled in chronological order, building a paper trail no one could argue with. I met with a financial advisor, not a lawyer, because I wasn't being sued and I wasn't suing anyone. I just needed someone with credibility to confirm, on paper, exactly where $118,000 of my earnings had gone over 3 years. She printed me a clean summary. Dates, amounts, categories, $81,000 for direct family expenses. $37,000 for things I'd quietly covered that they never even knew were emergencies. A repossession notice on my father's truck, a missed mortgage payment 2 winters ago that would have cost them the house. While I built my case, my mother built her narrative. I heard, through my aunt, that the story being told at every family gathering was that I had fallen into something shameful, and that they were praying for me. 22 days of silence from my parents, not one call asking if I was okay. Not one question about why I'd done it. Just shame passed around the family group chat like a collection plate. The reveal happened at my brother's college graduation. Party, 60-some family members and friends crowded into my aunt's backyard under string lights. The kind of event where everyone performs the version of themselves they want witnessed. My father stood up to give a toast. He talked about sacrifice. He talked about how the family had worked together to get Mateo through school. He specifically said, and I remember every word, we did whatever it took, as a family, to make sure nothing stood in his way. I stood up next. My hands were steady, even though my heart was not. "I'd like to add something to that," I said. And the backyard went quiet in the particular way a room goes quiet when it senses something is about to shift. I read the numbers out loud. $11,400 for Dad's hip. $9,200 for Mateo's tuition. The same semester everyone credited to a scholarship that, according to the university's own letter, had actually been revoked 2 years earlier. $6,000 for the roof. $37,000 more across a dozen quiet emergencies nobody ever thanked me for, because nobody ever knew. "I worked as an escort for 3 years to pay for these things," I said, "not a waitress. While you told everyone I was an embarrassment, I was the reason this family didn't fall apart." My father's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I watched a man who had never once been at a loss for words at a holiday table simply stop functioning. His toast still clutched in his hand like a prop from a play that had suddenly changed genres. My mother's face went the color of the porcelain she'd broken weeks earlier. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The silence said everything I needed it to say. I didn't ask them for an apology that night. I didn't need one anymore. I had already given myself the only thing that mattered. The truth, finally spoken out loud, in front of every person who had quietly judged me without ever asking a single real question. So here's what I want to leave you with, if you've made it this far. If you take care of people who have never once thought to ask how you're really doing it, financially, emotionally, in any way, you are allowed to stop protecting their comfort at the expense of your own dignity. You are allowed to let the truth be inconvenient. And if there's one practical thing I'd ask you to do after watching this, check in on the money in your own family. Ask questions. Don't assume that people quietly covering the bills are doing fine just because the lights stay on. Sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the only reason the house is still standing. You are not alone in this. More people are carrying secrets like mine than you'd ever guess at a dinner table. Now I want to hear from you. Type 1 if you think Daniela was right to keep paying for a family that looked down on her. Type 2 if you think you would have taken that $612,000 and walked away the moment you found financial freedom. And tell me, what city are you watching from? And what time is it right now where you are?